Hello, hockey fans. The Minnesota Hockey Connection show is on the air. We're at PACT-TV studios in downtown Duluth, where the snow is still falling, and we're trying to get, I think someone said that we're going to get 20 inches now. It was 17 inches last night in Gary, New Duluth, so for sure they're going to get 20 inches. So the snow keeps falling, but we got to talk hockey, and that never stops. So I want to have a guest that's been around the reffing for almost his whole life, and we're going to give him a call. His name is Greg Shepard. He had two sons that reffed a lot in college and high school. So let me give Greg a call. Greg, this is Jerry Borough from the Minnesota Hockey Connection show. How's it going?
It's going good. It's going good, except for the weather.
Yeah, is your phone on volume a little bit?
It's what?
Can you put your volume on your phone a little bit?
It's on as high as it can go.
Oh, okay. We'll try to get through this because it's hard to hear you a little bit. But hey, first of all, I want to know a little bit about you. I know you've been in the reffing business for most of your life, and that's a long life so far. But where did you grow up, and what high school did you go to?
I grew up on the west side of St. Paul. I went to Humboldt High School. That's back in, I graduated in '67. That's back when city schools were probably the best in the state in all the sports. You know, you had St. Paul Johnson with Hughes, Krupe, Peltiers, all those guys. Humboldt, we had Kenny Yackel and Kenny Staples. We had a lot of good hockey players back then. But yeah, I went to Humboldt High School, grew up on the west side.
Right. There was a lot of good teams back in Harding, and even Ramsey in the mid-'60s there were very good teams.
Yeah, South St. Paul, West St. Paul, they all were really good back then.
So when did you get into reffing?
Well, it's kind of a funny story, Jerry. I graduated from high school, played maybe a little bit of juniors. I went into service, got out of the service, and I started playing in like a senior league, and I always kind of got in fights. I don't know why, but I get my butt kicked. And this one referee that I knew that I worked with, he says, Shepard, he says, why don't you get in a referee, and it'd be a lot easier on your body than getting your butt kicked all the time. So I said, okay. So he got me in the referee, and that was back, let's see, I got out of the service 68, 67, 68, 69. Probably about 70, I got into refereeing, and I started with the little kids, you know, the squirts, peewees. Back then it was Maha, and started with that. And the high school league, or St. Paul Hockey Officials Association back then, John Bartz ran it, Ray Lorenz, those guys. I got in there, and I've been in there ever since. I got in there with this Jerry Krieger was my partner, and he played at Wash, and we got together, and that's when they had like 20 people. We had 20 officials to do, you know, well, there was no female, you know, there was no women's hockey back then.
Right.
So we just did, you know, suburban, St. Paul City Conference. Now they got over 200 officials in that St. Paul hockey.
Wow, it's grown a lot. And there's a lot less teams because all those teams that you're talking about, a lot of those schools are closed.
Well, there are, but you know, now you got women's hockey, high school hockey, and you know, a lot of them have combined now. You know, it used to be where they were all single, but like Henry or Two Rivers up by me here, Henry Sibley, they combined with St. Paul because St. Paul didn't have enough to have a team, and you know, a lot of those teams on the women's side and on the men's side have combined, and that's like Rochester, you know, down that was in the state tournament this year. They they were really good. I mean, the Rochester, Marshall, and Mayo, the Lacey's, the Johansons played down there,
Right.
and they were really good. But now they're all combined, so it's a whole different ball game today.
Okay. So you started out with little kids, squirts and peewees and bantams. Then you went into high school. Then when did you start college reffing?
Well, I started Division III, and I got into the WCHA in 1977.
Holy cow.
Yeah, yeah, that's back when the referees were like Nito Martinello, John Ritchie, Vicky Haig, and Dewey Marcus. Those guys back there, I got in with those guys, and I was asked. A lot of those guys would watch high school hockey, and they asked me if I wanted to give it a shot. So in 1977, I came in, and the first year I did the lines at Minnesota. So, well, I got to start somewhere, and I started on the lines, and then Bert Smith was the commissioner back then. He was from Michigan State, I think, if I remember right, and he asked me if I wanted to move up to referee, and I said, hey, yeah. So then the next year, 78, more or less, I started as a full-time referee in the WCHA, and I had a great career in the WCHA. Went to 10 pros and fours, and met a lot of great people. Did a lot of traveling, and then the women's league started. I worked, and then I retired from NSP, and WCHA hired me full-time. That was Bruce McLeod was the commissioner.
Right.
And he hired me full-time, and I worked 2 years as both supervisor and referee, and you can't do that. It's almost impossible because back then, Jared, and you've seen a lot of hockey. Back then, we didn't call a lot, and the last 5 minutes of a game, a tie game or something, you wouldn't call anything or overtime.
Right.
That's not the way it is today. So I felt, I can't do it justice. I can't do both ways. So I got out of there. Got out of on the ice stuff in, I think it was 1998 or 99. I got off the ice, and then, like I said, Bruce McLeod asked me to be the supervisor, and I replaced Ron Foyt. Ron Foyt did
right. I know Ron very well.
Yep, he did a great job with us. I learned a lot from Ron, and I took over for him, and then I think it was 4 years I did it. Or a couple years, and then the women came in, and they asked me if I'd do both. So, you know what, I did. I said, yeah. So I did both, and I'm still doing the women as today. There's 25 years for the women today, and when I retired from the men's side, which was 3-4 years ago, it was 29 years on the men's side, and the reason I retired is because it wasn't WCHA anymore.
Right.
CCHA, and I'm not a CCHA person. And, I just said I had enough. I retired from the men's side. I'm still doing the women. And still, to me, Jared, I think the difference with me and some of these people today is, and I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it, is I respect the WCHA. It's an honor to be here. It always was. I mean, you know what? When you worked in the WCHA, that was the big thing. That was big back then, with all the good referees, and you had the coaches you had were Rick Comley, Bruce Christensen was in Alaska, Ralph Backstrom, he was at Denver, Craig Dahl, Gino Gasparini, Bob Peters,
Mike Sertage.
Mike Sertage, Jeff Sauer, Doug Woog, and Gus Hendrickson was there for a while. Brad Budo was at Minnesota. Then he went to CC. Replaced Mike Birch.
Right.
So there was a lot of really good coaches, and the WCHA was an honor, and it's still an honor for me today to work in it.
Okay. Well, hockey is a small world when you're in it for a long time, like you have been, and I've been around. I came back to Minnesota in '91, and I've been around it for over 30 years myself now. And I tell you what, it's a small world, and you meet a lot of great people. And Bruce McLeod is one of them that you mentioned earlier. Bruce and I mean, it's just good talking to him every time you see him and that, you know. And I know he moved out to Denver there, and when he ran the WCHA, and boy, I haven't seen him that much lately. But WCHA, yes, it was a great league, and I'll tell you what, there's no better tournament they put on than that Final Five.
Well, you ain't whistling there. I mean, Bruce was kind of he was in charge. Him and Jack Larson that worked at the X. We went to the Target Center for a couple years while they were building the X, and then we moved over there because we were at the St. Paul Civic Center. I don't know if you remember that, but we were at the Civic Center for a while, and then they were looking for different places, so they were going to build a new rink right down the Civic Center. So we went to the Target Center for a while, for a couple years, I think it was, and then we moved back over here, and yeah, I mean, you couldn't beat that when we were going strong. I remember one game in particular with North Dakota and Minnesota, and it was 19,005. It was unbelievable. I mean, the people we had in there and just the players that played back then, it was unbelievable. But one thing, you were asking about my refereeing. I never worked the 2-2. It was always 1-2 or the 2-1 early on. But now they got the 2-2. If they'd have had that, I might still been around.
So that's how you send your sons into the business, huh? When did they get in?
Derek was in it first. He worked some juniors. He played at Henry Sibley, and then he went down to Sioux City and played for a year, and it wasn't his bag, so he come home and he worked a little USHL, and then he got into it. And here's the thing: people should know that Derek worked like 4 or 5 years on the lines for me, just on the men's side, before he refereed at all. And then he refereed for a long time in the WCHA, and he worked the Frozen Four championship game with St. Louis. He worked quite a bit of those. And then Brad got into it. Brad wasn't much of a hockey player. He was a baseball player. He was drafted by Cincinnati, and
okay.
Him and his wife, he went to 3 years of college, but then he dropped out, got married, and then he got into it, and he started on the lines on the women's side, and then he worked there for about 3-4 years for me. Then he refereed on the women's side, and then he got into the men's side and lines for about 4 years, and then he was a referee for the rest of his time till him and Derek both retired.
Right. And Derek was a supervisor, too, at the end, the last few years with the new league, the NCHC, because I used to talk to him a lot up in Duluth when we're like arm's length away from each other. So we had a lot of good talks.
Derek, he's got the knack. I got to say that. I really do. I know he's my son, and people will probably say, well, yeah, he's your kid. Well, he's got the knack. He was really a good supervisor. He helped Marco Hunt a little bit this year, a few games in the CCHA, and I think he's going to help him out a little bit more next year. But he's just got that knack to tell people or to explain to people or referees on the ice, what they should do, what they shouldn't do, and he does a really good job at that. And the funny thing is, he went to North Dakota quite a bit refereeing, him and Marco. Every time that Minnesota played up there, I think they were up there, and he had the student section on his side all the time, so he liked going to North Dakota.
Wait a minute now. Students liking refs?
I don't know what they did.
Well, let's look at today now with hockey, and I see a lot of refs are getting out of the business because they can't take the parents that in the stands and some of the fans. I mean, it's just getting so crazy, and I don't know. Do you have any ideas how to handle this now? And how did you guys get through that all those years that you guys refed?
Well, you know what? I don't think it was that bad when I was refereeing. the parents weren't that bad. The coaches, they had their say, but once the game was over with, the coaches were great. I mean, off the bench, there was nobody better. But I don't know with the fans. I don't know. I see it today. Like my granddaughter, Derek's daughter, tried to referee a little bit, and she got nothing but guff from coaches. And she goes, "Grandpa, I don't need this." And she played the game. She says, I don't know. The only thing, Jer, I can say is about parents, they have to control themselves, or somebody there in the associations have to control them. Or the other thing you can do is nobody comes into the games. I mean, if a parent goes off on a referee, you clear the rink and let the kids play by themselves, and they'd probably be more happier doing that. But I don't know. I mean, that's the coaches. The coaches that work for USA Hockey and stuff, I think, are a little crazy too. But they are. But I just I don't know. Plus, and I hate to say this, but the refereeing pool is down from what it used to be. And like you just said, that a lot of referees are retiring or quitting, especially at the youth level, because they don't want to put up with the parents screaming, yelling at them, waiting for them outside, swearing at them. They don't want to put up with that stuff. And I think that either the parents learn, sportsmanship, that all referees, aren't equal. And you know what? You do make a mistake. I don't care if you're Andy Van Helleman, or doesn't matter who you are. You're going to make a mistake. And, they have to accept that. And they're kids. And you've seen a lot of hockey. They're kids. There's about a minute fraction that make it to the NHL, especially when you're a squirt and peewee. And they have to understand to relax, take a deep breath, and let the kids play the game. The kids are happy on the ice.
Right.
They don't care what happens on the ice. The parents are in the stands. They're the ones that care more than the kids do. The kids just want to be out there and play the game. And I think stay off the referees and let them do their job. And, USA Hockey, I think supervises some of their younger officials that are coming into their program. And I think the parents have to be held accountable.
There you go.
If one does something, clear the rink. Say, okay, blame this guy. Don't blame the referee, and clear the rink and let the kids play. I think that's the only way that you're going to take care of the problems. And knock on wood, you haven't seen it in hockey that I know of, but you see baseball where parents are waiting for the umpires and punching them. And they're crazy.
Yep.
Thank God when I officiated, we never had that. Yeah, they yell, but you know what? You turn it off, especially when they're on the ice. If you let that bother you, then you're in the wrong business, because being an official, no matter what sports you're doing, you can't let the fans or the coaches get to you, because once they do, it's all over. It's all over, because you've lost everything, and you just can't let them get to you. And I know it's tough. I understand that, but you just can't do it.
Well, I know coaches, they have to work you sometimes so you can get a call, even though it was the right call you made. They want the next call on their favorite, But going back to parents and fans and that, most parents, when they come up, I go to a lot of the Duluth East games up in Duluth at the Heritage Center, and teams from the cities come up a lot. And when these parents come up, they like to have a couple beers and that before the game, and they come in there. And it was so funny this last year. I'm not going to name the team, but these parents were going crazy on the refs, and one of the refs just stopped the game, like you said, but he didn't clear the stands. What he did is he wouldn't start the game again until those parents left. Got.
You know what? That's good. I mean, I give them credit, because you know what? They don't have to do that. This isn't their full-time job.
Right.
They have another job, and they don't make a heck of a lot of money doing that. They do it, hopefully, just like I tell our officials on the men's side when I was there, and the women's side, that you do this because you want to do it, you enjoy it, not for the money. If you do it for the money, you're in the wrong profession, and you know what? You're not going to do the best you can do. You're not going to do your job if you're doing it just for the money.
Right. And another thing is that we're talking to Greg Shepard. He's the head of officiating for the WCHA ladies, and he was with the men's before that league closed down. And he's been a referee for business for over almost 50 years, huh?
Almost 50 years, yeah, about 48 years.
It's amazing.
It's like being a supervisor, 25 in the women and 29 in the men. I probably the longest ever to put up with. You get phone calls in the middle of the night. I remember one time and I hope he doesn't think bad of me, but Bobby Motzko, when he was at St. Cloud, he was in the playoffs at CC, and back then, if we were in the playoffs and if both teams agreed, for the third game we would switch officials. Well, we didn't want to switch officials. There was nothing wrong. There was nothing wrong with the games. Bobby's calling me at 1:32 in the morning, wanting me to switch officials. Him and I must have talked for about a couple hours, trying to explain I can't do it, Bob. I'm not going to do it. And you know what? We never did it. But that, those are the things. But the thing about it is, when they did call, they all were respectful, very respect. None of them were crazy. None of them were, personal, getting after me personal or getting after an official personal. They all were respectful. They all were good, and we had a lot of crazies. Herb Brooks behind the bench. Herbie was one of the goofiest ones behind the bench. And then when the game was over and you'd see him out, like I'd see him at a high school game, nicest guy in the world.
Yeah.
Same with Brad Butel. I said the Minnesota people were crazy. Doug Woog, he lived in South St. Paul, and I refereed high school when he coached high school, and he coached the Vulcans. I refereed him there, and when he took over Minnesota, we had our differences. In fact, he called me one time, and he said, I'm on my way home. I'm gonna drop off a tape. I want you to look at this tape of this call. I said, okay, Doug. So he comes over, knocks on the door, come in. Doug, you want a beer? Yeah, I'll have a beer. So we sat and chit-chatted for a while, had a couple of beers. He left. He forgot what he come here for. So he showed me the tape. He forgot all about the tape. We never even looked at the freaking call. So,
yeah, I've had a few beers with Herbie many times up by his home up there on Shoreview there.
Yeah.
And so when he was having a few beers, he was one of the funny. He should have been a stand-up comic.
All those guys could. Rick Comley was another good guy. The thing about Rick is he wouldn't holler at you. He'd give you the stare. I'm telling you something. That would go through you like chills. It was unbelievable.
It was like a wife.
Yeah. And then you had Jeff Sauer, which was one of my best friends.
Yep.
I miss him.
Nice guy.
Every day. But his big thing was offsides and icings. Offsides and icings. That's all he hollered about. He says, I can't control the bad calls you guys make on penalties, but offsides and icings you shouldn't miss. And he was huge. And you remember Bianchi that played for him? Well, there was one game where Jeff was talking to somebody and Bianchi yells, offside, coach, offside. And he turns around and just goes nuts. He never saw it. And the other thing is, and I probably shouldn't say this on the air, but I'm all done nowadays. But Jeff, it was brought up by Jeff's statistician about when it was 1-2 back then, and when I refereed them over a 2-year period, they were 22-0 when I refereed.
Wait a minute. We're going to have to check into this one.
That's what I was told. Do you remember, I'm trying to think of his name. Who was his goalie coach back then? I forget who his goalie coach was, but he's the one that brought it up at they used to have blue line luncheons back then.
Right. Yeah, all these teams did.
Yeah, and they were playing Northern Michigan, Rick Comley, and he brought it up, and I never knew anything about it. And then somebody said something at the game. I went, oh,
We won, Chip.
Wisconsin won.
Yep. Hey, this is a very big topic nowadays in hockey. The modern technology, reviews and everything. And the only thing I believe in using it if you have it, but the time sometimes it takes. But what's your view on all the technology we have with cameras and everything?
You don't want to know, because I don't think we should have video review at all. When I refereed, and I was lucky, we didn't have video. You made the call and you moved on, it was over. The coach would yell a little bit, but it was over. Nowadays, with all the technology, it does take a little bit longer. They got to look at it, contact to the head, hitting from behind. The biggest one that we're having problems with, and I think there's going to be a lot of talk about it in Florida coming up, is goaltender interference or the crease area. If you look at it, I would say that at least 85% of all the reviews are for goaltender interference. And myself, I'm from the old school. I think that anybody in the crease, you holler at them, get out. They don't get out, you blow the whistle, and you take it outside, because you know
Yep.
what? That saves all kinds of problems with is it goaltender interference? Isn't it goaltender interference? Coaches go, well, we want the player in the crease as long as they're not interfering with the goalie. We got to score goals. Well, to me, if you can't score goals without a player standing in the crease, you're in deep doo-doo.
Right.
It's all started. This all started back with was Denver and Maine playing at Boston Gardens in I can't remember, it was a Frozen Four, and there was a skate in the crease, a goal was scored, and they took it away. And everybody says, well, hold it, that didn't have anything to do with the goal, so we got to do something. So they allowed the player to stand in the crease or be in the crease area. If you're not interfering or impairing the goaltender's movement or his sight range. Well, you know what? Everybody's got a little different, and the thing about it is that that's a tough call. It's a tough call for the officials. And
Hey, I'm sorry to stop you, Greg, but my producer just said time's up for the show. And hey, I appreciate you coming on, and we can talk for hours, I think. And a lot of stories we could, but we got to get you on again. So thanks for coming on the Minnesota Hockey Connection show, and we'll talk to you soon.
thanks, Jerry.
Okay, thank you.
We'll have it up there.
Okay. Hey, this is it. PACT-TV Studios. Minnesota Hockey Connection show's off the air now, and we got to thank Liz and Jim, the producers, and we'll see you at the rink.